Alright fellas, this channel started with a Sam Seder compilation about him saying stuttering, stumbling, mumbling, and it's something he never stopped doing. So before I can get to Sam Seder debating, let's start with an compilation.
Is not about Kamala was 2 months before. Aside from, I would have if you have folks who identify as tell me what I consider myself, and sometimes I practice. I think we all practice like some form of white supremacy. Parents who agree with their children's doctors to provide. DEIA is inhibit corporations. So but things like the idea that we're going to get stuff like an enhanced RFRA, which is going to mean that if you're a pharmacist and you don't want to provide birth control, you may not have to.
Don't you think you're assuming that
if you believe that public education, that your air is not full of mercury, that your water is not full of C8, so it may be cheaper for a company. They want to impose their morality. What's
utilitarian?
I don't really.
Okay.
Well, no, I don't. Like you're not going to. I don't believe that someone has a corner on, and that, and it, apparently that's others supplanting. What Biden did during the IVF is when the egg and the sperm only in the threat of life to the woman, let's say. I think debate is healthy, and I think
I just love how Sam Seder prides himself on being in media for 30 years, and this is how he speaks. No one on the left cares because he's saying the things that they like to hear, but rhetorically, to a person objectively, he sounds really stupid and confused. Take a moment. This is like public speaking 101. You're gonna find yourself saying a lot, so before you say just take a moment and think. I just love how the person the left is heralding as this great debate lord sounds like his brain is slowly decaying in real time. But let's get into it.
my first claim is Trump's attack on DEI hides his real goal, which is to give corporations more power.
So of course the prompt is, Trump's attacks on DEI hides his real goal, which is to give corporations more power. So what do you think the first thing Sam Seder does is? The prompt is DEI, and of course he has to go, it's DEIA, right? The A is for accessibility, which means for disabled people. So that allows him, because the left's new mission is to act like they've never brought up identity in the first place, is to not focus on race and gender, which is DEI, but introduce the A for accessibility, so he can always attack the A and not the DEI.
I'm talking about his whole attack on DEI. It's actually DEIA, right? You know that.
Sam Seder will do everything possible under the sun to not address the preferential treatment for race and gender when it comes to DEI initiatives. So any escape he has, he will go to. So when this person is talking about DEI's favorable hiring practices for race and gender, non-white and queer, Sam Seder, as a bad faith rhetorical tactic, will pivot to government jobs don't get tax cuts, to try to muddy the waters, to try to make the conversation not what it's about, which should be DEI, but he'll pivot to DEIA and accessibility, and then when we're getting close to race and gender, he'll try to find anything else in the conversation except for race and gender, which no longer apply to the left, apparently. Apparently that's just a conservative figment of their imagination. Pure gaslighting.
DEI essentially provides tax cuts for the end of the year. When you create your tax returns, they give you a tax credit for hiring someone who is black or a person of color. I don't know if you knew that.
In these agencies?
In agencies and private
In government
businesses.
agencies, they don't get tax cuts for hiring people
And
of
the other
color.
thing I
This
wanted
is
to,
to
and I,
protect
the other
people
thing I
from
want to
discrimination.
the other thing I want to kind of state here is that I've realized that a lot of the times with the liberals is that you guys push for example, for DEI and people of Latino or Hispanic descent. And a lot of the times what you don't realize is you're actually doing more harm than good by putting them in positions where you make them believe that it's based on the color of their skin. It's based on...
DEIA does not is not.
It's based on merit. DEI emphasizes color, skin color,
No,
physical
it
attributes.
says that the people who work in your agency, it's about anti-discrimination.
Discrimination against what?
Against people who may have different cultural mores, may have different.
But that's irrelevant to a job.
Okay, dude, we all know that DEI was instituted to offset people's preconceived biases for cultural mores. He cannot bring up that it was for race and gender. He can't bring up that it was to elevate non-whites and queer people. He can't admit it. So he has to say cultural mores. And homeboy in the back can't even believe what he's hearing.
The DEIA stuff is just the beginning of demoralizing these agencies.
What a poetic inverse of reality. Sam is applying his analysis onto corporations when the inception of DEI was to, through equity, the E in DEI, achieve balanced outcomes based on race and gender. DEI is meant to demoralize the majority class in society into not only thinking, but knowing that being straight and white, but most importantly, not leftist, is a factor in their employment. But let's bask in the glory of how Marxist this next prompt is.
My next claim is, unless you're a billionaire, a religious fundamentalist, or a xenophobic nationalist, voting for Trump was a mistake.
So a billionaire, the largest accumulators of capital in society, religious fundamentalist, what makes someone a fundamentalist, how religious. They never make a differentiation between religious and religious fundamentalist. Trump's not even religious. Trump's not even religious. So that's kind of weird. It's kind of just there to be anti-religion. Really look to the state. Don't look to religion, look to the state. Or a xenophobic nationalist. Xenophobic, you have to have the same affinity for everyone in the world as you do for your countrymen. And then nationalist, as if they accept other forms of nationalism. So all of these things are cast in a negative light. Billionaire, religion, xenophobia. Disagree with extreme wealth, don't follow religion, don't have a sense of national identity. Nailing it, dude. Loving it.
Fine, what is a religious fundamentalist?
And maybe you could say more of like a Christian nationalist.
Okay.
In this instance. But things like, the attacks on trans folks, the attacks on a woman's right to choose.
So the word attack means criticizing. Criticizing trans people and criticizing a woman's right to choose when she terminates a pregnancy. You can be a liberal and criticize those things, but a criticism is an attack. When you're a leftist fundamentalist, when you're a leftist internationalist, this is the language they use. You're attacking these people. No, I'm attacking the ideology that is guiding the people in this direction. Abortion used to be safe, legal, and rare. There was going to be people on the right fighting for less abortion, people on the left fighting for more abortion and earlier. That's as good as we got in society. That's as good as we had it. It was liberal as all hell. I'm an atheist liberal, okay? I'm very pro-Christianity in society. I would never say to somebody, be an atheist liberal. No, absolutely not. I don't recommend my lifestyle to anybody. But when I think of society, I think, clearly we need to have some sort of, what if we had a religion that helped build the country and make it what it was, and we went back to that? I guess that's my stance on that. I wouldn't say I'm an atheist liberal that's a cultural Christian. I would say that I would say I'm an atheist liberal that's an Andrew Wilson Christian nationalist. I love Andrew Wilson. Which brings me to the star of the show. Now, I don't know anything about this next person, but according to what I've seen, he had the best arguments in this entire thing. A lot of the debates were kind of boring and not really well done, but from all the feedback I've seen and from popular content creators on the right, this guy did the best. And it's 100% predicated on Andrew Wilson. I'll show you.
So I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalist aspect.
Yeah.
Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew. I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
Okay, so what's wrong with religious fundamentalists? So like when you said trans rights and women's rights or something like that?
Well, the problem I have with religious fundamentalists, and really more, I guess it's really theocrats,
Okay.
is that they want to impose their morality that comes from their religion on the rest of us. And I don't.
But morality, from your view, is going to be a preference, right? It's not morality; it's a preference.
Because my preference is democracy.
Oh, your
When we're talking-
preference. So your moral claim is your preference?
Isn't that what this conversation is about?
No.
I thought this was going to be a conversation about what system you prefer versus what system I prefer.
And inside of a system of preferences, there should be some type of ought or justification for it outside of, because I want that. I just want that.
And,
Your
who's
moral
strawmanning
imperative
who
is
now?
my preferences?
Who is strawmanning who now? I didn't say that.
You said you
secularism
want
should-
it because of your
You-
preferences. That's it.
I did not say. In accordance with our philosophical underpinnings.
So our preferences?
Yes.
Yeah, so then you're appealing to nothing more than your individual preferences. All of the world's morality and everything in it comes from Hutch's brain and his preferences. That's what's
No, I
moral and
don't-
immoral. Then give me
No.
a moral justification external your preferences and why we should follow them.
I believe that all morality is subjective. We don't derive it from, or I don't derive it from scripture. I derive it from my experience as a human being. And my philosophy, the one thing that I try to lead with is empathy. That's it. And this is something that I was taught when it came to scripture, when we learned about Jesus' teaching. The two main rules that he gave was love the God your Father and love your neighbor. So even though I don't subscribe to Christianity at this point in my life, I still gleaned valuable lessons from the teachings of Christ. And I carry those teachings.
But that's
to
all
this
subjective
day.
preference, right?
Yes.
But morality, from your view, is going to be a preference, right? It's not morality; it's a preference. So morality without a foundation is going to reduce you to a preference.
Well, I have a foundation for my morality.
Which is what?
It's a humanist vision of what basically creates as little suffering as possible for as many people.
Okay, so you're like a consequentialist, utilitarian.
I don't really bother myself with being a consequentialist or a utilitarian.
Sam Seder doesn't like titles, okay? Sam Seder will go, I don't like to think of myself as that, or when he was on the PBD podcast and they asked, how far left are you? This is what Sam Seder said.
Spectrum. If there was a football field, where do you stand? Like 50-yard line, left, right?
I'm definitely of the left, without a doubt.
How far left?
I don't know. I mean, within the context.
Are you in the red zone? Are you near the goal line? Are you closer to the 50?
I don't know. I don't really think about it too much in those terms, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that I think a genuine socialist would say I'm certainly not a socialist.
Yeah, he's just on the left. Who's to say how far left he is? He just thinks it should be illegal for Patrick Bet-David to be as rich as he is.
Oh, I specifically want to make it illegal to be almost as wealthy as you. Not quite, but a little bit more. Like, I want to make it.
Imagine if somebody on the right was like, I don't know how far right I am, but I just want to make it illegal for someone to be a little more Jewish than you are. Who's to say how far he is into his ideology?
It's always going to reduce you to a preference. So if you say that killing is wrong and I say it's right, you would really have no contention with that.
Well, no, I don't base my understanding of civil society on religion. And so we have a civil society. Okay. We have laws that we have decided as a society in a democratic way. And for some people, it's okay for it to be informed by their religion. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So if tomorrow society comes together and we say, hey, trans folks don't deserve rights, you would be okay with that?
No, I would be against it, but I mean, it would be
morally right under your view.
Not morally right. No. I'm not talking about morals.
As some of you may have learned from yet another previous Sam Seder video I've made, Sam Seder doesn't talk about his morality. His morality doesn't matter. He hides his morality, even when accusations of political violence come his way.
But you didn't really talk about like a moral condemnation of it. You didn't call the man crazy or unreasonable or anything of that nature. You just said, well, I don't think it'll work practically.
I agree. I don't think it would work practically. I don't think a reasonable person would
But
assume that
morally,
it would.
you don't have a problem with it?
No, I don't find it like my morality is just not something that I necessarily talk about. I don't have to justify my morality to you. You're talking about me advocating violence, and I'm not.
Okay, so here's where I'm getting to, right? Religious foundations provide an ethical framework for one to live their life off of.
I believe you can have an ethical framework without religion.
And if we take the leftist view to its logical tail end, to its extreme view, you have low reproductive birth rates, you have a reproductive dead end, so two men together can't reproduce unless they have to take from a healthy straight couple. Religion provides this foundation where you do prioritize the nuclear family.
So do you have a problem with gay people being married?
It's not that I have a problem, I just don't see a justification for why they ought to be gay outside of it just feels good. Can you give me another justification for it?
Well, I think maybe that's the way they were born.
Okay, what about pedophiles? Are they born that way?
They may be, yeah.
Okay, so should we let a pedophile off the hook since they were born that way?
No, I think we as a society has decided...
Should implement duties to prevent them from acting on that innate urge, correct?
Well, I think between consenting adults, it's a different thing than...
Okay, so you're okay with a 45-year-old dad with a 19-year-old daughter as well? Incest?
No.
If they consent, you're okay with that?
No, I think society has also determined that it's like it's not beneficial.
Right, there's duties and obligations that we have, so religion provides those duties.
So there's plenty of things to criticize about Christian nationalism. What are they? I don't know necessarily because no one's really making good arguments against them. What I enjoy about the Christian nationalist perspective is that what leftists do, socialists, communists, they will try to demoralize you, okay? They will try to be more moral than you. And so what the Christian nationalists are doing is, God is my morality, and that's where I get all of my morals from. The leftists get all of their morals from Karl Marx. Not exactly a good contender with God, okay? But they don't just use God like wantonly. They have a really good justification that their morals come from God, and they can go into more detail about that. I can't. I'm an atheist. Listen to them because they shit on leftists. Right here for it. And in longer discussions, I always find them reasonable and wanting the best for society, and they think they have the best prescription for society. I don't want to get married and have kids, but I can see why that's good for society. So that's the deviation right there. But let's move on to xenophobic nationalism.
And same with xenophobic what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
To be xenophobic nationalism is better?
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian,
it's rooted in European identity.
So your argument is that...
That has been the dominant culture.
Just to be clear...
And we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America...
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot.
I love it, dude. It's a melting pot of white supremacy.
Would you consider yourself racist?
I consider myself, and sometimes I think we all practice like some form of, white supremacy.
It's not a white, what? That's not a white dominant culture, it's a melting pot. Doesn't that destroy your entire narrative from the left? That it's a white dominated culture? Isn't that your whole argument with institutional racism? Isn't this the whole argument with representation, where we need to see non-white people because we're surrounded by a white-dominated culture? No. In the same way that there's multiracial white supremacy, there's also melting pot white supremacy. It's both a melting pot and white supremacy at the same time.
For better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No, it doesn't
and
mean
now
you're
instead we're saying there's something wrong with
the dominant
xenophobia.
Culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. You and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close. No.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to import a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too? Yeah. No, I think you're making my argument for me.
What's your argument, Sam? The fact that many people in the room are completely disagreeing with her and they're pro-MAGA, and the fact that she doesn't think Trump is a Christian nationalist and she thinks Trump is a Democrat? But meanwhile, Sam Seder's narrative is that it's a bunch of Christian nationalists in there and Trump's a Christian nationalist. The person that you're talking to is a Christian nationalist. The people around her, a lot of them, don't agree with her. They don't agree with Christian nationalism. A lot of them are probably pro-gay and pro-multicultural. So there's a diversity of thought in the room, and also the person that is MAGA doesn't think Trump even believes that. So what is your point, you decrepit old dingleberry?
My next claim is the GOP will destroy Social Security and health care.
So Sam is about to talk to an immigrant that fled from a socialist country. It seems like he's interpreting this prompt from the standpoint of the more capitalist free market wealth we generate in society, the more taxes the government can get year over year. If the government starts scaring away businesses with high taxes, that might work for a year or two, but over time would lead to less wealth for the government to tax.
Do you think taxing people makes the country wealthier? Is that what you think?
Does it make the country
Do taxes
wealthier?
make us wealthy? Is that government increasing taxes? Are we now more wealthy? Do you think that the only way you create wealth is by producing?
If you tax and spend, government stimulus can increase GDP, of course.
Is GDP wealth?
Is GDP wealth?
If we import 10 million immigrants and our GDP goes up, are we now wealthier? If the housing costs more, if CPI goes up because there's more people.
No, I understand you. And inflation is under control, and we haven't pulled that money off the table.
Right, but I'm just saying that
inflation is back down because we had a problem.
The welfare state makes us all
logistics.
poorer.
It
does. And you can see
it doesn't.
Across history.
If you compare,
people want to come here for economic opportunity. We don't want handouts. We want opportunity. That's why as an immigrant, that's why my family came here. We left the socialist paradise. It's garbage. The people that come here want economic opportunity. And you're stifling that. You're undermining capitalism and the free markets with your utopian vision.
There is no free markets.
Well, there's not anymore.
No, there's never
but now
been
there
a free
used to be.
No.
There's never been a free market. I guess real capitalism hasn't been tried yet. Leftists like Sam Seder only focus on the wealthiest, the most rich. They don't understand that the average CEO pay in certain states is like $500,000, sometimes $300,000. There's a lot of businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, that suffer much more than large corporations with these heavy taxes. And here's the issue. If you only care about taking taxes and not how the money is spent, then what good is it? You just hate rich people. You don't care about poor people because once the government takes this money, the left always complains about how it just goes to the military-industrial complex and how it goes to areas that they don't agree with. So how do you agree with a government taking more money? It's okay, they're taking it from rich people, but they're not spending it in any sort of reasonable or responsible way. They've sent over $100 billion overseas. We don't care how the government's spending it, we just don't want rich people to have so much money. That's all it comes down to. It's American degrowth is what leftists want. And speaking of degrowth, let's go to my favorite Sam Seder debate topic, abortion.
My claim is that abortion is immoral and should not be legal.
Imagine if Sam Seder's response to that was, yeah, I disagree, largely because I think, wouldn't he sound dumb?
Yeah, I disagree largely because I think
Okay, I got that out of the way. Now let's take this abortion conversation seriously.
My claim is that abortion is immoral and should not be legal.
Yeah, I disagree, largely because I think,
the primary rights that we have under a society should belong to the person, and I don't believe a fetus is a person.
At which point does it gain personhood and gain the value of being a human?
Well, I think it becomes a person when it's born.
What is this baby's first abortion debate? It's a person when it's born. So this is why the right's really concerned with the abortion laws coming from leftists. This is the up until the 9th month rhetoric that justifies terminating a pregnancy up until the moment of birth, not until it's born. What, not until it's fully out? What kind of metric is that? What if the umbilical cord is still connected? Is it technically born yet? So once it's separated from the mother, then it's a person. Even though there's premature babies born in like the 6th month, 7th month. So once those premature babies are born in like the 6th or 7th month, then it's a person. But a healthy baby in the 8th and 9th month isn't a person yet because it's not born.
So 5 seconds prior, it's not born yet, not person. 5 seconds after exits the birth canal, person. Is there a magical quality to the birth canal? What is that?
The person becomes separate from the host that has been that it's been growing inside.
Okay, so would you assign that to other human beings that are attached to things? Like, for instance, if I'm attached to a machine, am I a machine now? Am I part of that machine, or am I still a human life? I just need support in order to stay alive.
If you've never been born, and you're growing in, let's say, a test tube, for instance, then yes, I would argue you're not a person yet.
Okay, so then, but it's not really the disconnected part. It's the being born part.
Well, being born means being disconnected from your mother.
Okay, so you're specifically aligning having the quality of being birthed as what makes someone a person.
Person within the context of our society and civilization.
So just in our society, you wouldn't say that objectively that's a person. You would say that we just decide that it's a person because it's a birth.
Yeah, rights we give to persons. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's an interesting kind of definition of what human life and specifically personhood
well, no,
is.
I don't. I'm conceding that it's human life, but that you're not a person until you're born, and you do not have the same rights that we would give. Look, we have rights about cruelty to animals, for instance, right?
Yeah, like the Unborn Victims of Violence Act. So since 2004, we've had a law that recognizes a child in utero as a legal victim if they are injured or killed during the commission of any of over 60 listed federal crimes of violence. The law defines this term, child in utero, as a member of the species Homo sapiens at any stage of development who is carried in the womb. Of course, the exception in that law is abortion, so if you're gonna kill it on purpose, good to go. If it's killed by accident in a federal crime, a little more personhood. I'm not going anywhere with this, I just found it interesting.
So a 9-month birthed child, or just 9 months and just now born, it's a newborn baby. A 5-month could be emergency C-section and could be birthed, right? Let's say they don't do that. What's the difference between the arbitrary choice of taking that child out of the womb at 6 months or 5 months?
Why don't we take all children out of 5 months?
What I'm saying is that the personhood just because of birth runs into a problem where it starts to say,
all right, guys,
well,
I hate to do it, but
okay.
I gotta do it. I'm sorry, that's time.
Okay.
Oh my god, dude. How frustrating must that be where you're under a time constraint and the person you're debating under this time constraint sounds like this.
Only in the threat of life to the woman, let's say. You're not going to.
This is a feature, not a bug. They filibuster. They ramble. They monologue. They literally try to bore you to death, even under a really tight time constraint. So let's end it here. Sam Seder is propped up as some sort of debate god for leftists. Not because he's good at debating, but because he has absolutely no shame, which is the only way you can try to debate as a leftist. The man is supposed to be a professional public speaker, and if he's a legendary debater, he should be concise and fluid with his speech. Sorry, let me say this in a way leftists can understand. The man is supposed to, be a professional public speaker, and if he's a legendary debater, he should be concise and fluid with his speech. Have a good one.